welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. We're so excited to have you here again today, and extra excited wherever you are in the world for you to be joining us. My extra special guest today is the incredible, the amazing Stewart Marshall. Hello, Stewart.
Hello, Mish. Flattery will get you absolutely everywhere, if I may say.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. For those of you that haven't come across Mr. SAAS himself, Stewart is one of those incredible people that knows lots and lots about IT, but he can still talk in an everyday way to people. And he's specialised in doing this for many, many years now. He's specialised in helping people like you and I and many others to understand IT and not get caught up in the jargon, the language, and understand what it is that we might need to do when working through implementing things in organisations. But I want Stewart to tell us and let us know, how do you become Mr. SAAS and how do you go on that journey to becoming so excited and so integrated into IT? So Stewart, please tell us your story.
Well, I'll tell you what, you don't wake up one morning and think, when I'm in my 50s, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah, this is one of those places you find yourself that's, I can adequately describe my career as it seemed like a good idea at the time. And pretty much every decision I've made that kind of got me here has followed along that kind of way. And this is in no way any kind of guru mantra or anything of that nature. It's an objective review of everything that's happened, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. So I was a delinquent young man, I think, probably is, but not that bad. I mean, I don't have an arrest record or anything like that. But I went to my local grammar school, so I passed the 11 plus. I was one of the brighter kids in the county, in glorified Warwickshire. Passed my 11 plus, went to school and found that schooling really wasn't my thing. Education wasn't my thing. Formalized learning was never really my thing. And so I failed at schooling and found myself doing, relatively sort of low grade tasks and working in supermarkets, stacking shelves, that kind of thing. And then thought, kind of got to just going to my 19th birthday and thought I probably should do something about this, having failed to get an education. So I kind of thought, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And so I went off to my local, literally, I went off the local library and went through the big pile of, this was in the 80s, so we didn't have computers, and a big pile of leaflets, and went through and picked out about 15 that I thought were vaguely interested, whittled those down to 2 or 3. One was business, one was, I don't know, Scottish history with hairdressing or something bizarre, I don't know. And the third one was computers or IT, which in the late 80s was this sort of burgeoning area. And I thought, well, that's a bonzer thing to have a crack at. We'll have a go at that and we'll see where we go. And so I did a 2-year vocational course, a TAFE equivalent, and got myself a job at the local insurance company. And they happened to be building a platform, working with an Australian software provider. I ended up working for the Australian software provider off the back of that. And then in 2000, having seen Australia and thought it was wonderful, came to work for the Australian software provider in Sydney. And the rest, as they say, is history. So I spent 17 years in Sydney working with this business, and then moved on and got into experience for a wider value than just simply the benefits of one software company.
Wow, what an interesting journey. And yeah, very, very different to choosing careers, I think, now. And then you're right, in those days, many people, it was just a choice of go and pick from a list.
It's one of those conversations, and I've had this conversation recently with a couple of people, and we were talking about this notion that at the age of 18, we pick a degree or we pick a career or whatever it might be, whether you go and learn a trade or however you choose your future. And that's your job for life, right? That's what we do. It's this kind of Aldous Huxley Brave New World kind of thing with choice. Well, I'm going to be a florist. Okay, that's it. That's all you're going to do from now on. Nobody looks retrospectively at the work you've done and says, well, there are a lot of things that we can learn from floristry or IT or accounting or whatever it might be that can apply to this other business. we tend to stay in this stream that we're in, and it's a bizarre way of going about life. Because frankly, at the age of 40, I knew a lot more than I did at 18, and I know a lot more now than I did at 40. And it was quite clear to me then that the choices I'd made had worked out quite well for me. But I could also look at it objectively and think, gosh, this might not be the right place for me. I may need to adjust my course because I'm only 40. I'm going to be working for another 30 years yet. That's a long time on a decision you made when you were 18. So yeah.
It's very true and very relevant, I think, now coming through the last few years with the changes in the pandemic and people rethinking about what they want to be doing with their lives. So with that in mind, and that you obviously have thought through this, life journey and life path, what would you say then success means to you? What do you think success is for you now?
Success for me has always been the same thing, which is I've always wanted things to be better. Now, I don't know what that means, right? That's a fairly broad brush statement, but my early years in the IT industry, I just wanted to make people's lives better. That was this sort of underlying idea for me. And even now today, I've moved on, and now I'm helping the guys down at WiseTech and helping them improve their world. And the story I'm telling them is exactly the same, which is I'm interested in making this better. Now, the problem with better is that better implies change, and change is a real frightener for a whole bunch of people. So success for me today in a very sort of specific microcosm and a very specific thing is improving the time it takes for a software developer to get some software into the system, checked, tested, and ready to go live. If I can shorten that process, make their life easier in some sense, then A, I get paid, and B, their lives have improved. So these things kind of align for me as a way to go about life.
And I love that because you've understood quite clearly your overall theme, even if the delivery changes depending on age and situation, and that overall theme of making people's lives better is a very, very admirable one. And one that I'd love to explore a little bit more now as we get into sharing some of your suggestions and tips around creating the mindset for success, because I know some of your journey and some of the resilience that you've shown when going through that journey to being a successful entrepreneur.
Well, I mean, it's very nice of you to say so. I'm not sure I've ever been a successful entrepreneur, but I'm still going. I'm not in the gutter yet. So life is, I'm doing okay. I'm doing very well. I mean, but so it's an interesting thing. So going back to my very beginnings in this, going to Shakespeare's school, the same school that Shakespeare went to, and all of these things, and a relatively high level of expectation from the people around me, and me being just useless. I mean, a waste of space, frankly. But something happened to me, and I'd love to say that I had this brilliant insight as to why I should do something, but it wasn't. For me, it was just a feeling. It was a sense. I needed to make use of the tools that I had available to me, which in 1989 was a brain. That's it. A tall, gangly, skinny little young man with a brain and an interest in technology because I thought it was exciting and where the world was going to go. And so it was this, okay, well, I've got to go and do that. That's now a job I just have to do. And this is this is one of what I refer to as being a grown-up moments. Now, I'd like to think I was a grown-up, but I'm fairly certain I don't exhibit being a grown-up on a daily basis necessarily, or on an hourly basis, or whatever it might be. But there are things we do where we have to be a grown-up. And at the age of 19, I thought I probably should go and do something. So I will go and do that. 2 years, head down, bum up, get it done, get out the other side, taking a step forward. Here we are. Not on a path to somewhere specific, but a step away from where I was. And that must have been a good thing. And I kind of think of it as taking the bins out in the rain on bin night. That's how you know you're a grown-up, because you do the things that you don't want to do, but that need doing. And so for me, this is one of those things that's followed me through life, is it's grown-up time. It's time to make a decision and do something good. and do something that positions you better for tomorrow. And that was the same when I finished up at Lancer in the end of 2017, having worked for them for 20 years or so, and traveled the world, which, I mean, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this greatly. But kind of thinking, okay, I've done my dash here. What's next? How do I go from here to somewhere else? And even not knowing where somewhere else was, but the not here sense. And it's this is the sort of the next thing for me, is this knowing that this is no longer the place you need to be. It's not for me anything specific that I can articulate. It was just a feeling. It was this, I now need to move on. And I mean, it started with dinner with a gentleman who's become a great mentor of mine. And he said, oh, well, how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 49 or 48, I can't remember which it was. And he said, oh, well, you've got plenty of time for a second career. And nobody had said that to me, and I'd never had the thought. But there I was, sitting there thinking, this is kind of not really where I want to be. I need to be somewhere else. And somebody saying, you can have another career. Like, oh, okay. How do I make one of those? And then I start going through this, the logical IT guy kind of thing with the, okay, I now have a problem. I'm here. I want to be not here. Need to go somewhere. So let's articulate a somewhere and see if we can't take a step towards it. Now, this is not. I
love these points that you're raising around, the adult moments of just taking the bins out when you need to take the bins out, and also those knowing moments that you've shown and talked about. You just knew that it was time to do something different, and then you found yourself at a dinner party and somebody saying to you, oh, well, what career are you going to do now that you might grow into or grow up?
Yeah. And I genuinely had no idea. So I mean, I'm fortunate that I have a very supportive wife, and that I was in the position where I could stop earning money and take a step out. And this was the KPI thing and writing the book there and all of this stuff, which was even doing the KPI program for me was.
So for people watching, the KPI program is a key person of influence program that Stewart's referring to, and that we both did, but at different times, and so met through that program.
And I was in that situation saying, okay, I'm going to go and reinvent myself. I'm going to start writing. I'm going to start presenting a public persona. No idea how to do that. Not the first clue. So I kind of searched, how do I write a blog? So I started writing about things that are interesting to me. And then, because it was a marketing requirement somewhere, I went and saw a friend of mine that I didn't really know that well, but she was the only person I really knew in marketing, and said, what do I do? And she said, go and talk to Dent Global, the KPI people. They'll know what to do. It's like, okay. So I went off and I did the program. And they teach you a whole bunch of stuff about how to position yourself in the market. And so it's like, okay, I've now done that. Now what? And they're like, well, now
I love this theme again, like you said, when you went and did the course for 2 years when you were 19. It's kind of like, I want to do something. I'm not sure what it is, and I want to go somewhere, but I don't know where that is either. But let me start with, the thing in front of me. I want to do a blog. So that kind of pathway and that curiosity leads you to something like KPI, or key person of influence, where you learn a lot more skills, and also change. The other part about it, I think that's fabulous, is you change the world of people around you, because you find people that are all doing that.
I mean, this for me, from a personal perspective, was the weekend when you and I met up at Port Stevens. And being new to the KPI program and walking into a room with a bunch of people I thought were the greatest humans I'd ever met. I mean, every one of them. And just think, my God, if I could be even a little bit like them one day, God, that'd be awesome. And being in that world where you're presented with something that you can aspire to. You're presented with a target. I've got something to aim at. I want to be as good as them. Yeah, that guy's written a book. I should never write a book. I'm on the KPI, but I've got to write a book. Oh shit! But even writing writing the book for me was an extraordinary thing, because I mean I was lucky that I'd sort of come out of work and I didn't have clients to worry about, so I had lots of time. So I thought, well, I've got to write a book. You've got to get the book written to you. What have you got to do? You've got to write 60,000 words. God, well, that's 1,500 words a day for what, 7 weeks? Yeah, I could do that. So literally getting up in the morning and writing 1,000 words before lunchtime, going out, hitting a bucket of balls, coming back, tinkering with it, writing a few hundred more, that sort of thing, and doing that on rinse and repeat for 7 weeks. And then get to the end, you go, oh, I've written a book. Oh, how about that? and just this extraordinary process, which, I mean, when I look back objectively, I mean, makes me sound quite superhuman, but to me is all very much me just going, oh, I'm solving that problem today. I'm just going to go, and I'm not that good, right? Let's point that out. I'm really not that solid. I'm not that reliable. At least I don't think I am. But
one of my favorite lines from that movie, The Martian, is right at the end when Matt Damon says to the students that he's talking to, it's about solving the math. You just look at what's your first problem in front of you, you solve math,
and you keep solving problems. Yeah. You keep moving forward. Don't. I mean, oh God, I'm going to sound like a motivational speaker, and I promised my team that I'd never do such things. But it is that, and it's not. It's you've got to solve a problem a day. You've got bullshit. You haven't. It is like running a marathon. You will never get to the end if you stop. Now, this isn't to say that you can't have a break, because you can. Of course, you can. We're only human. The world takes effort, but if you want to get to the end, you've got to keep moving. So for me, it was just a case of, now I've got this problem. Now I'm in the market. I've written a book. I've got some cachet. I've got some market value. How do I sell myself? How do I, obviously, because what I'm doing isn't working, so I'm not making money hand over fist or whatever it might be. How do I do the next thing? How do I get the next problem? How do I, and I didn't give up for 4 years. I kept going and kept banging and kept hammering, and I wrote every day or 3 days a week, and was on podcasts and TV shows, and I'm speaking at the ICC in March off the back of the book, and I landed a role with WiseTech because I literally approached a billionaire and said, you and I can help each other. Not literally those words, but that was the sentiment of the conversation was, I know you have this problem. I know you're interested in it. This is my expertise. We can help each other. No, nobody does that with a billionaire. I mean, who's stupid enough to do that, right? As if it would produce any results. But here we are. And you only get to do that if you've done all the other stuff that's gone before.
Well, and I think that you're describing really lovely for people that you didn't start off knowing what the answers would be. You didn't start off knowing even the journey or the process. You just started off with, and that's why we started talking about, what's the next thing to solve? What's the next thing to think about? What's the next thing? And you kept at it like you were saying, it was a marathon.
I was telling this story earlier. In my extraordinarily interesting and checkered past, I've had the pleasure of presenting myself to a therapist once a week for conversation, and I'm fairly certain she deserved better than an hour spent with me every week. But there we go. And we sat there one day, and she said to me, "Do you think you're a little bit OCD?" And I said, "I suppose maybe I could be." She said, "Yeah, I think you are." Okay, how long? You tell me now. And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, here's a story." She said, "One day you said to me that when you have a problem at work and something you can't solve, you and your guy you work with, you go, not to worry, we'll put it on the back burner and come back to it. And then at some point you'll come back to it." And she said, and what happens if you can't solve it?" I said, "Oh, we'll put it on the back burner and we'll come back to it." And she said, "When it comes around again and you can't solve it, what do you do?" So we'll put it on the back burner, and we'll come back to it. And eventually, with enough iterations and enough effort, we'll solve the problem. And again, I'd like to make sure everybody understands I'm not a guru. I'm not recommending this as a technique. It's just the one that worked for me, which is this ludicrously sort of dogmatic approach to solving problems sometimes. And one of the things that I will very often say is that I love all of the dogmas, but I hate dogmatism. Yeah. Every single dogma has something to teach us, and there's something we can take away from it, whether we agree with it or not. But strict adherence to a thing it seems to me like an odd way to go about life, because it stops you being flexible and fluid in your approach.
I agree completely. I think that there's a lot of truth there around the whole use some of the insights and wisdom around these types of things, but actually don't let them then run you, which is what you're saying. And that's so true, you know. Putting things on the back burner, I do that so much, because I know that my brain's actually still working through something when I'm not looking at it. And when I come back to it, I'm like, oh, there's the answer. Oh, this is the next step to do. But if I sit there and try to work at it, sometimes it just doesn't click, and I have to leave it.
I have my best insights when I'm not thinking about the problem I'm trying to solve. Yeah, the morning shower is a great place for an insight about the day. Or, you know, this is really difficult, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to go hit a bucket of golf balls, or whatever it might be, whatever the thing that takes you out of that processing loop, and you get to go and have some free thought about something. It's always a great way for getting insights.
And I think that that's very true with where we are now, and you know, being at the stage of the year and everything that we're at, that helping people to understand they don't need to necessarily sit there and try at something, but actually place it out there, think it through as much as you can, and then go for a walk, go for golf, go for whatever.
There are people who need to solve problems right now. That's a lot of people's existence. Mine is I'm very fortunate. I work in a world where we don't have to solve problems straight away. But that probably for the best, because they're big problems. I mean, you know, we can look at something and go, well, there's a big problem. It has enormous value. How do we solve it? Well, we throw enormous value at it to solve the problem. So, yeah, it's not something we're going to do in a day. Will it take 6 months? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess then that's what we'll do. We'll look at it, we'll justify its value, and we'll work out whether we think we should do it, and then we get on with it. And it's just this big process. It's just solving, again, back to solving the problems bit by bit by bit. You know,
and I think
elephant in the room stuff.
The wonderful part about that as well is that, and you and I see this a lot in organisations that think they have a problem and they need to come up with a plan, and then they want to stick with that plan to the nth degree. But the information and the knowledge that they have about that problem a month in, 6 months in, a year in, has completely changed. And so the way of approaching it will have completely changed as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, that applies to us as individuals as much as it does to a project. One of the statements I use on a regular basis is that I very rarely know the right answer straight away, but I'm very good at spotting wrong answers. And there are far more of those than there are right ones. And you see this a lot when people say, oh, well, we'll just do this. And he's like, okay, let's stop. Let's think it through. Let's find out whether first answer is the best one. Yeah. Or can we look at first answer and go, oh, I think we can be a bit smarter about this. We can maybe take a step back. Maybe if we encompass this other thing as with it, then we can make a much better value proposition by doing two things in a single hit. So all of that, it's this idea of understanding big picture and being able to break it down and rationalizing it and working it through and all of that. It's, for me, is just, that's kind of fun for me, which is a deeply sad statement in many senses. But it's what I enjoy doing. It's my means by which I make the world better.
Yeah, and I love that, because it comes back, whatever area you're talking about with IT or with life and relationships and everything, it's all about how can you make them better, and breaking down each of the different situations and activities into those. What's the next thing that I'm solving? And then, okay, I'm solving this today, or I'll need to park that and I'll come back to that later. And I love that whole way of looking at it, to take away that sense of urgency and that sense of right or wrong, because we grow and learn each day about.
I mean, I'm terrible. When I when I find something that I think, gosh, that needs fixing, I want to fix it straight away. And that's my natural kind of, I want to. And I have to hold myself back. I have to stop, because I immediately want to go and talk to 3 people and go, right, how do we fix this? What do we do? Blah, 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 blah. And I have to stop. I have to say, right, hang on a minute. Let's understand more before we ask stupid questions, which is one of my other things. I'm very good at stupid questions.
Well, I don't think there's ever really a stupid question. I think that there's questions that you can ask to get more information, and that's what I love that we're talking about today. People having that curiosity can lead them to being in a room where you're suddenly one of those people writing a book. And going back to that key person of influence experience, I remember myself when I first met those people and was like, oh my God, instead of being in environments where everybody was waiting for Friday, waiting for this, waiting for that, and just kind of marking time in their lives, being surrounded by all these really enthusiastic, gung-ho, and they weren't extraordinary or different or from the normal population. They just had so much more get up and go and enthusiasm for what they were doing in their lives. And I think that when you start, as I say, surrounding yourself with people like that, you end up writing a book, you end up doing a blog, you end up doing all of those things.
Well, it's very easy to feel that you can express an opinion when you're surrounded by people who express an opinion.
Yeah.
Then we're a product of our environment, for want of a hackneyed old statement. But it's undoubtedly true that if that's what we do, if we surround ourselves with people who do such things, then what's to stop us? True.
And if you're around a group where everybody writes a book, then suddenly everybody writes a book, and you've changed.
Surrounded by authors, it's like, right,
Yeah. Instead of it being like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book but never got around to it, you're suddenly like, well, everybody does it. It changes that whole mindset around.
Absolutely does.
The people you're with. So as we come towards the end of the time now, what's the best way that people can reach out to you, Stewart?
Oh, well, the easiest is find me on LinkedIn. All my contact details are on LinkedIn, emails on there, phone numbers on there. I mean, if you want to chat, give me a call. It's what I do for a living, is I help people. So I'm always happy to chat with someone. If I can't talk, I'll be upfront and tell them. But always call. LinkedIn, find me on my website. Just put me into Google and I turn up.
Fabulous. And if you were to give some insights, and we do have a couple of minutes, but what would you give as insights to your younger self?
The dumb questions are the ones you don't ask.
Oh, I really like that. Yeah, the ones that you don't ask.
I finish all my presentations with that as my last slide. It always says the dumb questions are the ones you're not asking, because there is no point. And I think of it kind of like when you go on holiday and you think, oh, should I do this particular thing, or should I do that particular thing? And you've never been to Machu Picchu before. You think, well, I might not do it. I might do it. As if you're going to go again every week. It's like, no, your opportunity is now. So take your opportunities. Ask the dumb questions. Don't be afraid to look stupid. Now, I'm an idiot sitting here in a bright pink shirt, right? What I have great problems with a lot of software developers, as a generalized statement, a very crass broad brush, that because these are extraordinarily bright people generally and have great levels of self-confidence, they don't tend to ask questions of others. They don't tend to look for help. It's not to be critical of them, it's just an observation. And so for me, ask questions, ask for help. Don't be afraid. If you ask the question and somebody says, idiot, you're like, yeah, I was an idiot, great. I'm wiser tomorrow now, because I asked a question, I found something out, I'm wiser tomorrow. And the last thing is just back yourself. Be brave, have a go. The worst that can happen in nearly all scenarios is somebody says no, and you don't get to carry on. This is the you get what you pitch for statement, a statement you'd understand and recognize. It's exactly that. Unless you have a go, what's going to happen?
And I think that that's such an important thing, and such a element of advice for people that are younger watching. Have a go. The Einstein example, if he failed 99 times before he invented the thing the 100th time, It's one of those things that through life can be a little bit tough to get used to that rejection and everything, but it's so important.
Nobody likes it, but it's the path to success, it seems, is to keep trying, keep failing, keep learning, keep making yourself a bit better, your world a bit better. Yeah, here we are, not doing so bad.
Well, and I love that, and it's such a wonderful place to end up on, talking about making yourself, the world, your place a bit better. Thank you so much for joining me today, Stewart. It's been such a lovely pleasure.
Entirely my pleasure, Michelle. Thank you so much.
It's been so great having this conversation with you. And to all of my fabulous viewers, thank you again for tuning in today. It really does, my heart sings when I'm doing the show, and being able to share experts like Stewart and the amazing resilience and tenacity and just giving life a go. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.